So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Yin Yoga. Let's take a comfortable seat. Close the eyes. Take a deep breath, and as you exhale, feel your body soften into wherever you are. If you're anything like me, you hold tension in certain places of the body just habitually. So the deep breath can signal to our body to let go, soften, quiet. Have you ever heard the saying, as we are, so is our world? I reheard this again not too long ago, and it reminds me of what I always say, which is wherever you go, there you are. But a deeper sort of connection to this idea is what is going on the inside? How is our physical, mental, emotional, even spiritual bodies perceiving the world around us? And how are we living within? As we are, so is our world. Something to consider as we practice today. Bring the hands together. Lightly touching the hands as you slide the fingernails up your breastbone, feeling and encouraging the lightness in the front body. You might notice softening in the back body. Bow the head just a little tiny bit and hold whatever intention brought you to your mat this morning. Why did you take the time to come? Let that percolate in your consciousness as we practice today, and let the class be exactly what you need. And as you exhale, releasing hands, opening eyes, rolling shoulders. All right, so we're going to start with some somatic movement. So let's start lying down on our back. And the first thing I want you to do is go into like you're going to go into Shavasana. Okay, you're going to lie down with your legs down and your arms by your side. And just take a moment to see what's going on in your body internally. I always find this first lying down on the mat really interesting, because even when we're lying in our bed, it's not real firm like this. So noticing anything that's happening, sensations that the body might be trying to give you, any activity in the mind. How is the breath feeling? And then I want you to turn your palms down, put them right by your side, bring your legs more in line with your body. Remember that some somatic work or satya work is very subtle. So I want you to take your right hand and slide it down like you're trying to touch the side of your knee, and notice how it depresses your right shoulder toward the towards your hip. And then slide your arm and your hand upward like you're trying to bring your ear and your shoulder together, but don't move your head. To do that a couple more times, just slide your arm down and slide your arm up so the arm stays on the floor. And you're just noticing this interesting movement in your shoulder girdle. And after you bring your shoulder up by your ear the next time, pause in the middle and just notice the difference between the two arms. And then let's go to the left arm, reaching down towards your knee, sliding the palm along the floor, and then gliding the shoulder up by your ear. You might notice your own tendency to want to try to touch your shoulder to your ear. It's not necessary. We're depressing and elevating the shoulder blade. And every time you move your arm, the shoulder blade moves around with it, and there's sticky tissue a lot of times underneath the shoulder blade. So you might notice a little stickiness as you're trying to move. Next time your shoulder comes up by your ears, relax and pause. And then go back to the breathing, noticing if there's any shift in the breathing. And then go down to your feet. And I want you to take your right leg and I want you to turn the toes inward towards the midline. And then turn the toes outward away from you. So it's, again, another very subtle, small movement that's actually happening at your hip socket. So noticing this gliding or rotating movement in your right leg. Doesn't matter if anything touches the floor, it's just wherever your body wants to go. And the next time your foot turns outward, go ahead and pause and see how that feels. Compare it to the left leg. And then go to the left leg, turn the toes inward and turn the toes outward. Very subtle, interesting movement. We work in these kinds of movements all the time, but they're usually very camouflaged by whatever it is we're doing. You know, going up and down stairs or sidestepping a curb or picking something up off the ground. And then next time your foot turns out, go ahead and soften, let it go. Just take a moment here to notice the whole body now. You just moved a little bit through the hip socket and the shoulder. And we're going to do one more. I want you to bend your knees and put your feet and your knees together. And then put your hands behind your head and bring your elbows toward each other. So the movement is together. We're going to take both knees and both elbows open at the same time. And then we're going to bring both knees and both elbows closed at the same time. Try to move in slow motion. Noticing anything that's going on. Like you're working all four joints now at the same time in a different way. Closing together, opening together. Targeting this connective tissue and fascia. And last time, nice and easy, opening and closing. And then after your last close, go ahead and put your arms down and your legs down. Last time. Notice what you notice. And then from here, let's bend the knees and roll to a side. We're going to push ourselves up into a seated position. Did you find any kind of shift at all? Did anything happen? Anything exciting happen in your body? All right, so we're going to do half dragonfly, which is this position here with the leg outward and the other leg forward. If you want something to sit up on, you can use your blanket or maybe a folded towel. I didn't wake up all that long ago. Usually I'm up a lot earlier, but this morning, no. So remember, you can put your foot wherever you like. The further up you bring it, the tighter everything is. So you just decide which way it is that you want to be in. Okay. Remember, block under leg if your knee doesn't like this position or your hip doesn't like this position. This leg's just straight out, and eventually you're not going to hold it in place. It's going to flop off to the side. That's fine. So sit up nice and tall. We're going to turn towards this bent knee. So I want you to just nice and easy turn, 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 turn. You're going to find your edge here. Then take your opposite hand to the leg and the other hand on the floor behind you. Try not to over twist. Find your position that your body wants to stop in, and then pay attention there for a moment. I'm going to set the timer for the first time. And in yin, what typically will happen is if you don't push too hard, after about 30 seconds, the body will soften. And you'll be able to naturally deepen your twist. Be careful about pulling on this bent leg. You want this leg to release. You want that action to happen. So if anything, your hand's just resting on the top of it. Back shoulder blade into the body. Eyes are turned. Eyes can be open or closed. As we are, as the world is. How do you perceive the world and what's going on around you? I was this weekend with a friend, and I was in this mindset of observation and just listening, trying not to say too much. And I was astounded at this one person's view of everything that goes on. It was basically traumatic, catastrophizing. There was really nothing that she was viewing in her world or in the world around us that was that was a happy, joyful, good place. And I just found it to be so interesting because this language was in my current mindset, you know, as we are, so is the world. Okay, now the next piece, I want you to leave your back hand quiet by your side and start to lean yourself towards your front leg. So you're still kind of looking in the direction that you're in, but you're not trying to turn and face your front leg. You're open. Now this back arm could still be on the floor, just depends on how far away you went. Or you could take your arm and put it up on your other leg. I've got my thumb around my hip crease. And the weight of my body is just sort of resting toward my front leg as I'm in this twist. Don't overwork here. This is a big movement. The eyes are still facing the direction that you were looking at initially, but maybe they're closed now. And we're addressing the area around the hip, the lower back, pretty much the whole spine if your body is still twisting. And just notice how your body with gravity just starts to let go a little bit more and a little bit more. That's our connective tissue softening. I always have the visual of working with clay or any kind of dough, Play-Doh, you know how it's stiff initially. And then the more you work it, the softer and the more pliable it gets. That's pretty much what we're doing here. Only we're not moving, we're just allowing tension against the tissues to do their magic. And have you ever noticed, take a breath and then I'll tell you, and then slowly come back up, come slow. When you come all the way back up to sitting, you can turn your head and then start to allow yourself to come to the front. Bring the leg up and shake the leg out. But what I was going to say is, have you ever noticed when you are noticing, or you've got a thought process around something, or you start to notice things in your, that you're paying attention to, like I just told you this story about this woman. And then everywhere you go, you keep seeing the same thing. So this particular woman who has, go ahead to the other leg, this particular woman has this, and maybe it's, for a reason, I don't know, but I was just observing that she just had this really negative view of the world and herself. And then all the stories that she was talking about were all really bad stories, like things that happened to her. Remember last week I said your life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So I just found that to be so interesting. Like if you look through the lens of love and joy and abundance, do you see more love and joy and abundance? I think so. Sit nice and tall. Don't use your arms. Start to turn towards the bent leg side. And when you find that stopping point, I want hand on leg, other hand on the floor. Excuse me, you can go ahead and adjust yourself, but try not to get yourself into much of a deeper action here. And then go ahead and pause. Remember, the eyes can be open here, but if you're overworking, if you close your eyes, you'll soften a bit. See if you breathe down into the belly. I always think about breathing into the belly, especially in a twist, being like a massage internally. Because you can feel the breath and the diaphragm moving downward, kind of pushing your belly open. And that's a little bit of a joyride for the organs. And you're breathing and you're softening and you're noticing, witnessing whatever is happening in the body, mind, breath. Noticing any fidgeting, any itching, twitching, anything like that. That's our nervous system that may or may not be quiet and calm. All right, now the next part of this is just leaning that shoulder that's facing your long leg and start to just lean downward. Try not to look at your front foot. Keep your eyes where they were. Or if they're closed, keep your face facing the same direction. You're going to find a stopping point here. Again, you can keep your hands on the floor, or you can hook your thumb into your hip crease and let it kind of rest there. And this one can be a little odd and uncomfortable. So notice if you have any tension anywhere. So I was doing some work this weekend, and I came across this picture of it was a really good picture of the anatomy of the armpit, and it happened to show all the lymph glands that are in the armpit. And I was so fascinated with it, I actually saved it because I want to share it. But it brought me to this thinking of working with yin, working with that fascia flossing idea, working with the fascia itself and how it affects the lymph system. So even though we're not really moving around a lot in this class, we're putting tension against the tissues on purpose, and that will create some lymph flow. And we know that it's really important to have lymph flow, and it does not have its own pump, right? The lymphatic system does not have its own pump. And so what is pumping it? Movement. So when you don't move around, your lymph gets kind of congested, and then you can get sick. Simple explanation, much more complicated than that, obviously. So it got me to thinking about my daily practices. All right, slowly start to come up. And I don't know about you, but daily practices, they build on each other, right? If you do one thing that's really nice, supportive for yourself, you'll tend to do something else. Have you ever noticed that? It's kind of like, as we are, so is our world. It's the same thing. If we keep going down that negative cycle, we stay up late and we eat too much junk food and we watch too much television. We almost do more of that and we feel worse. But what if you put more and more and more positive things in your life? So I had forgotten to do my dry brushing, which I know in my Ayurvedic world is really good for us. Dry brushing? Dry brushing. And I saw that picture of the lymph and I was like, oh, I need to be doing dry brushing again. So I added that to my practices. So now I've got about a half a dozen practices I'm doing every single day. Take your legs out. And it makes me feel, it's got this energy of abundance. It's got this energy of yes, rather than the energy of like my friend that was over this weekend. So your legs are open wherever you can go. Don't make it overly done. And you can use a bolster, you can use your blocks, you don't have to use anything, but we're going to start to fold forward. So I'm sitting on the very edge of my blanket. If you sit on a blanket, sit on the edge so it helps to tip your pelvis forward in that anterior tilt. And then just naturally start to come forward and down. Again, you can rest your hands on the floor. You can rest your hands or your arms on a bolster. You can put your bolster up with a block underneath it. That's a nice thing to do. You can put your head in your hands. Find a place that you can rest here, where you feel sensation, but you don't feel an overstretch or discomfort. We give the body the signal that, yes, we want you to move. Yes, we want you to be healthy. Thinking about the fascia and the lymphatic system in that way. But we're not going to push you all the way to the edge where there's like a response, like a trauma response. No, thank you. We've done enough of that. We don't need to do that anymore. And just contemplate this idea of as we are, so is our world. As we are, so is our experience. As we are, so is our life. If you're not holding your head, let your head go completely. As the body starts to soften and the tissues start to soften, your body will get heavier and heavier. But just allow that to happen without any trying, no trying here. We're not doing the trying trap. I think I told you about that. When you say to yourself, well, I'm trying to, whatever, you will never do it. It's a message to yourself that it's never going to happen. You're always trying. So somebody I know calls it the trying trap, which I think is clever. And ever since I heard that, I had found myself saying it, so I've switched my language. I'm moving toward, I'm working on, I am. All those kinds of positive things, not I'm trying. Because if you were trying to get to class today, you probably wouldn't have come. I'm trying to go to Yin. What's the next part of that sentence that we usually say? I'm trying to go, but. I'm trying to eat better, but. I'm trying to exercise, but. All the things. Breathing, softening. Take a nice deep breath. And then start to slowly walk yourself back up. Did you find yourself getting lower and lower and lower as you waited? Put your hands underneath your legs, slowly start to bring them back to the center. We're going to make our way down onto our bellies. Last week I introduced a different way to do Sphinx, and you're welcome to do that again if you liked it, or you can just lay flat on the floor. If you don't remember or weren't here, I used my bolster and I put it underneath my pelvis so that my hip bones are supported, but maybe my pubic bones off the edge, and then I can come into a straight arm position. You can also lower yourself down onto your forearms, but my bolster is so big that I can't get any back bend, and that's what I'm after. You can also do that with a blanket. You don't have to use anything. So Sphinx pose is a mild back bend. It's putting pressure on the tissues in the opposite direction now. So it's important that we balance these shapes. So once you find your resting place, go ahead and become still. Reminding you that when you're here, it's a lot of people just don't even know what to do with their head. You know, if they hold their head up, it's just uncomfortable. There's too much effort. If they let their head go, it feels like a little bit risky. Take your block and put it on the high end and put your head on it. And just see what that feels like. Softening your shoulder blades and your shoulder sockets into the body so that your body feels a little bit like a hammock rather than pushing up and away like we would normally do if we were in a hatha class, right? Let your body feel heavy, 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 like a big sling. And when that becomes easy and there's no sensation, then the next phase is to keep your hands way out in front of you, come off your elbows so that your back bend is a little bit bigger. The more you can bend, the closer your hands get to you so that you're way up. But again, no trying, no effort, no overwork. And I like to experiment a little bit with different, just slightly different variations. Like I might put my legs wider apart or closer together. I might come up on my hands. I might change just a little tiny thing so that I can experience this in a different way. So as I consider those habits that we add to our day, for me, the dry brushing will be a new one. Not a new one because I've done it before, but I have let go of it for a while. And everybody's different with dry brushing. If you don't know what it's good for, it's really good stimulation to the lymph system. And the lymph system not only removes toxins and helps to flush them out of our system, but it also is a distribution system of hormones and different kinds of chemistry that's in our body that needs to move around. So this lymph system helps us to do that. And we have a variety of lymph glands around the pits, the back of the knees, the groin, the armpits, the neck. You know where they all are. Take one more breath. And then as you exhale, slowly lower yourself down. Let your head rest on your hands in a neutral position, ideally, at least initially. And so part of what I was thinking about with the dry brushing is that it's really good for the lymph system, just like yin is, just like the fascia flossing class I'm teaching now is. And it's like another positive pathway for my body to be as healthy as possible. All right, go ahead and push yourself up away from the floor. I'm going to show a shape that I typically don't do. I'm going to ask you to use your bolster. And I know, Margot, you've had knee replacement, so you're going to do this on your back. So we're going to move into pigeon pose, but I want you to be elevated. So if you're doing this with me, you're going to step your foot over the bolster, and you're going to place the bolster underneath your body so that you can be in this bent-legged front position, but you're up on something. Okay? So this is one way to do this. Margot, you're going to lay down, and anybody else who doesn't want to do it that way, you're going to lay on your back and do your pigeon pose upside down with this position, ankle over knee, and then bring your leg in. So this is also a very, very acceptable position. I just thought maybe you might want to try something different. So if you're on the pigeon, on the bolster, you want to position it so that your back leg, top of your hip crease is on it, and that your front leg is completely supported. Now, from here, you can stay up on your hands, or if you've got the freedom, you can come down on your forearms, or maybe on your blocks. I'm elevated, so my bolster's kind of thick, so I would be on my blocks if I were going to stay here. Don't worry about your body being crooked. Like my hip is a little bit higher on this left side. Looks like Jeannie got frozen. Are you there? Yeah, I see you. I see you, Jeannie. I don't know what happened. Okay, she's here. She sent me a text. She's like, what happened? So either pigeon pose on the bolster or laying on your back in the figure 4. And then find your stillness. Now, if you're in the pigeon pose, this might be a little edgy. So just check in with yourself. You know that saying we have in yoga, don't sacrifice your body for the glory of the pose. That's pretty much what we're always asking ourselves. How can we optimize our experience without sacrificing anything? So if you're on your back, you've crossed your ankle over your knee, and you might lift your leg up towards you so you can hold the bottom leg, or you could put your foot on a block to make it a little higher towards yourself. And if you're in pigeon, you can just release over the leg if you have that freedom. So last week's theme and this week's theme kind of work together. That whole life happens for us so that we can wake up, so that we can observe the contrast in the world and notice maybe things within ourselves that we would like to shift. Like when I was noticing this woman, I can be a little bit of a naysayer too sometimes. I probably, if you're honest, I think everybody would say that. But you don't want to be stuck there. It doesn't make you feel very good. And then your internal process, your internal system views everything that way. So shifting to things that are more, I like to call it, higher vibration, love, joy, abundance, all the things that we're talking about all the time. Go ahead and take a breath. And then we're going to slowly, if you're in pigeon, slowly come up. If you can put the weight on your back leg and try to move yourself out of that posture, you can. Or you can shift yourself over on your side. A lot of people will do it that way too. If you're lying on your back, just change the cross of your legs. So pigeon's a little bit more convoluted. You have to move around a little bit more. Take your time, no rush. And then we're just going to switch your sides. So your front leg, if your foot is close to the bolster and your knee is farther away, that's fine. You don't have to have that 90-degree angle. That can be really, really aggressive. So just notice what your body wants to do. And I didn't mention this on the other side, but traditional pigeon, your back leg is completely straight and your body is forward. But you could turn this leg out a little and let it lay on its inner side and then be here. Try one or two of those and see what it feels like. And then decide, am I going to come down? Am I going to stay up? Feeling and sensing into sort of the wisdom of your body rather than what the shape looks like. That's one reason yin is so wonderful. It doesn't necessarily want you to remember what a pigeon pose in its full expression looks like. It wants you to go into whatever your body shape will allow. One of the classes that I take locally when I can get there is very much an Iyengar practice. And Iyengar is all about systematically taking you through step by step by step into this big, glorious pose, right? And I mean, I've taught that way my whole life. This is how I learned. But what I started to realize about myself is that there was a lot riding on that final pose for me. Like if I went through an entire hour and a half class and I couldn't get to that final pose, there was a tendency for me to want to force myself to do it. And that's not a very healthy attitude, actually. And of course, it wasn't the teacher's fault. It was what was going on in my own crazy. That's my tendency. And rather than saying to myself, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to go to that class anymore because, I could get hurt. I have to look at my own lens and my own understanding and shift. And I find that's one of those things that I found, like my journey on the mat. Oh, this is how I live in the world. This is what I do. Oh, I see. Interesting. And then you pivot or you shift or you change perspective or whatever it is you do. And I share that with you just because it's a common issue that many, many people deal with. They don't accept their own limitations. They don't accept who they are as a human. They're always trying to strive to be something else. Well, what if we just accepted who we are and we look through the lens of joy, love, and abundance? Our life might be a little easier. I keep thinking about this person that I saw this weekend. It makes me laugh, actually, because she was such a big contrast for me. It was really clear. All right, go ahead and take a deep breath. And then slowly, slowly starting to come out of that shape. The easiest way is just to come up and lean a little bit off to the side and pull that back leg around. But you might want to put your weight on your back leg and come off the front leg. From here, we're going to lie down on our backs. Yay! And we're going to go into one of my favorite poses. It's banana boat. So you might want to lie down and maybe bring your knees to your chest, give them a little hug, or do any kind of gentle movement that feels good to you, because the pigeon pose can be a big pose for a lot of people. And then when you're ready, we're going to put the legs down. Let's shift the legs over to the left side of the mat. So they're all the way down, shifting over to the left. And then shift your head and shoulders a little bit over to the left. Try not to overdo that. Now, two things you can opt into is you can cross your ankles one over the other if you like. And you can hold your wrist. So if you're on the left side, you're going to hold your right wrist and you're going to go up over your head. So your arms are just kind of resting on the floor. If they don't want to rest on the floor, you can always put a bolster behind your head, or you can leave your arms down. You're breathing into the right side of the body. The right hip is heavy. The body's heavy. Everything's being supported. Feeling and sensing into the wisdom of the body. So I like to think about the decision you made to come to class. Is life happening for you? because you just never quite know what's going to show up when you're on the mat. All right, so take a nice deep breath and start to unwind yourself, letting go of your arms, coming back to the center. Might want to bend your knees in the middle and reset your pelvis. Swish your knees or bring your knees to your chest, whatever feels good to you. And then we'll go to the other side. So legs go down and they shift over to the right side of the mat. Head and shoulders go to the right side of the mat. And then decide about crossing your ankles or not, and then decide about holding your left wrist and pulling it up over your head or not. All of those choices give you different sensations. And so just noticing which ones make the most sense for you today. Softening into the shape, allowing the body to feel heavy as the floor holds you. Nice full breath in the belly. And take a nice deep breath. And slowly, slowly starting to unwind from there. Come back into the center. But for the last part of class, we're going to take a bolster, or if you don't have a bolster, a folded up blanket or a block, and we're going to put it underneath the pelvis for a little elevated bridge pose, supported bridge pose. So if you had anything under your head, please move it. And as you place that bolster or whatever underneath you, make sure that your lower back is happy. You want to support your sacrum. That's the most important part. And again, if you have a big bolster, your lower back's going to get supported too. If you have a smaller structure, it's going to be around your sacrum. You've got two choices. I see some of you doing it already. You can stretch your legs down so that you're in this big bow shape. You could do one leg at a time, or you can just leave your legs bent so that your pelvis is slightly higher than your heart. And I'm thinking again about the healing and the health of the system when you reverse this flow just a little bit. It's not always from the top down. It can be from the bottom up. We're just going to be here for a moment or two. It's an opportunity for the systems of the body to have a calmer, more yin-like experience. When we're up walking around or exercising or doing chores, whatever we're doing, that's more of a yang experience. It's more active. It's more, our heart rate goes up and our body temperature goes up and things are always more active. This last shape helps our body to go into this yin, quiet, nourishing state. So that we find that homeostasis, that balance, regulation of the two. All right. You're welcome to stay there, or you can take that bolster away and find your way to Shavasana. Remember the blanket, even a light blanket will help regulate your nervous system. Something across your pelvis might help your body feel more grounded. Something covering your eyes might help you go inward. Any and all of those choices are good. And then once you stop moving, as we've been doing all class, you take that breath and you soften into your shape. Resting. As we are, so is our world. Take a deeper breath. And slowly starting to stretch and move. Coming back to your body and the space around you. And as you feel ready, you can start to bend your knees and roll to a side. Make your way up to sitting. Once you're seated, bring your hands to your heart center. Sliding your fingernails, your thumbnails, just lightly up your skin towards your collarbones. You'll feel the front body kind of float upward. Soften shoulders and bow the head. And gratitude, as always, for our time together on the mat, the experiences that we all have, the awarenesses we all have, our deep body wisdom and guiding light. May our light always shine brightly, and may we always see the light in each other. Namaste.